Thank you for joining Encore Palm Beach County. And Karen Roberts, our resident HR specialist and board member, will be sharing with us some reviews of what we have done in the last 6-7 months to get ready for our event and some of the great interviews that we've had. So give me 1 second, I'll share the screen and then turn it over to you, Karen. Okay, Karen, it is all yours.
Thank you, Christine. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you all being here as we take a moment first to reflect upon what we have accomplished for this year on Encore Palm Beach County. And when we began thinking about this year, and of course that all started last year, pre-pandemic, we had a wonderful breakfast kickoff event in Delray Beach, and we invited interested folks and community members to come and hear about our event, which of course was going to be in 2020, and it was Wisdom and Experience Works for Business Award. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. Our event got deferred into this year. We'll be talking about it later. It's October 29th coming up. But we decided as a team, as a committee and a board, with the guidance of Rosemary Nixon, our wonderful founder, to try to do things or to focus on things that would lead up and build toward the event. And all things related to intergenerational work teams, the value of mature workers, the ROI of experience, any and all of these things were topics that were definitely deserving of individual webinars and would certainly build excitement and generate interest and also educate and advocate for our mission, which of course is connecting people 50 plus, as we can see in our logo there. And so we began to think, how could we best do this? And we came up with a concept called Words of Wisdom. And each month, and we've actually had a month or two where we've done 2 such webinars, we began planning for Words of Wisdom. And our first speaker we chose as Brian Altschuler. He's the VP of Ancillary Operations for Boca Raton Regional Hospital, which some of you may know now has been purchased by Baptist Health. And Brian did a great job in kicking us off with our Words of Wisdom series. And what we'd like to do now is take you through a trip down memory lane, or if you didn't get to go to that particular webinar, we have all of them archived on our YouTube channel under Encore Palm Beach County. But certainly we received many important takeaways from each speaker. And so I've taken a moment here to just summarize some of the high points of what they said. It was difficult to do in just a couple bullets because everybody shared such wonderful words of wisdom. But I'd also like to pause at the end of each slide. If anybody in the room here in the audience on Zoom now attended that event, and if there's anything particular that stood out to them, please feel free to share. So as I said, Brian kicked it off, and he spoke about the commitment not only in his own family, but in his organization and his own personal commitment on the leadership team of Boca Raton Regional regarding intergenerational diversity. They certainly value all types of diversity, but generational diversity is just as important as some of the other aspects of diversity. And he spoke about how volunteers, we all know going to a hospital, hopefully we haven't been to one recently, but if we visited, we know the importance of volunteers in making things work at hospitals, from helping direct people when they come to the front desk to all kinds of different volunteer opportunities. And so Brian spoke of the importance of having experienced volunteers, especially during a trying time when someone is visiting a loved one in the hospital or coming in for some outpatient surgery. And so he also commented on the fact that just like people, we know we all need to be flexible, adaptable, and reinvent ourselves. This also applies to organizations, and learning, growing, and thriving organizations are ones that have learned this, and they do need to change and reinvent themselves over the lifespan. And he spoke about true north, finding life's purpose, and combining the knowledge that you have in your head with what's in your heart. And I think many of our speakers spoke about this or referenced that true north, which I really think comes, of course, very naturally with experience and wisdom. So that was a wonderful takeaway from Brian. So that was our kickoff in March, and we were off and running, and we're going to see what our April event was. Christine, thank you. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So in April, we had a very fascinating panel discussion with 3 experts. Our topic was keeping age discrimination out of the employment equation. It is no secret and a very known fact about how there is age discrimination out there. That's why they always will tell you, if you're an older worker, to get a good night's sleep the night before your interview, look refreshed, look youthful, be adaptable, all these wonderful bits of advice that you're like, gee, I wish I didn't have to do all that advice. I wish I could just be myself and be accepted for it. And this is what I am and who I am. But we must follow these tips because we want to, of course, present ourselves in the best light possible. And these experts, we had 2 attorneys, one David Micklitz, who is an employment law attorney. We had Vanessa Coe, who is an attorney with Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County, and our own Paula Humber. She's part of our Words of Wisdom and Experience Works for Business Committee. She's also an HR consultant. And so we posed some questions, some scenarios, advice, different things to our panelists to see what advice they could give us, either if we're a job seeker or if we're a company, and that we want to make sure that we are not discriminating in any way. Sometimes there's biases that we're not quite aware of, and our role as an HR person is to make sure our interview panels and our hiring managers are very aware of how to have diverse age panels, perhaps do some different things to be sure we're not doing any type of discrimination in employment. And so some words of wisdom from these folks is, of course, we always want to be very careful to not make assumptions or stereotype folks. There's people that are 80 years old that could be just as computer savvy as a 20-year-old, and there's all kinds of different things. Sometimes we make stereotypes or judgments about people about their age without really knowing. So we need to treat each person as a person and not make generalizations. Paula talked about blind hiring as a best practice. And basically what that means is perhaps seeing a resume, not knowing that someone had 20 years of experience in something, or don't know where they live or what college they went to, that type of thing, and just being really focused on the qualifications and the competencies of the candidate rather than letting some of these other things be a distraction. Also advising companies, don't list the maximum years of experience in a job description. Just because someone has 20 years doesn't mean they shouldn't be considered for something. But if you're saying 7 years maximum, all of a sudden somebody is excluded, and that really doesn't help. We talked about implicit bias before and what that means, and how to try to take that out of the employment equation. And also experienced workers need to leverage their network. Sometimes we don't realize the importance of our own connections and how to best use those in moving forward to find employment or new employment or to start a business or whatever we're trying to do. So I'm going to take a breath here and see if anybody had any comments in the audience that might like to share any other takeaways, or if you're seeing this for the first time, anything you'd like to share for March or April. Feel free. Christine, we'll give it a minute. If not, then we'll move on.
Okay. Anyone?
Okay, Christine, what happened in May?
Okay.
And May was another wisdom and experience speaker, words of wisdom. In that particular one, we were very happy to have Wendy Sartori Link. You may know her as our Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections. And she talked about leadership tips for a multi-generational workforce. However, she had to start out by telling us how important mature poll workers were during the 2020 election cycle. You may or may not remember, we actually had 4 different elections that year. And she said that the value that these folks brought, we all know that there was some extra things that were going on at that time that people were a little bit tense or might have had a bit of shorter fuses than in typical previous times. But she said the mature poll workers knew how to de-escalate situations. They were able to arrive at positive solutions, that their life and work experience served them well. And this is something that whether you're volunteering or you're coming into the workforce or in the workforce, that mature workers provide is that calm and that knowledge of how to handle. They've been around the block a few times. In terms of tips for the multi-generational workforce, Wendy came into that role really having no experience. She was put in there by our governor of the state of Florida, but really felt it was important to listen, learn, build trust, identify the strengths of each employee, and then focus on what needed to change. Anytime you come into something in a leadership role new and you're considered the outsider, these are very good tips to just listen and understand first root causes and then begin making some changes with the support of the team. And she also spoke about encouraging collaboration, developing common values, and that different age groups may appreciate different methods of communication. But really getting to know each of her employees was very important for her to, as I said, build trust and to be able to have her organization excel to the level that it needed. And so much so that they have won awards in around the state for the way that they conduct elections. So I think we can be very proud of that kudo and that role that they have in terms of that level of credibility that they have in the election process around the state. Okay, Christine, what happened in June?
Let's see. Here we go.
All right, in June, we had our own Rosemary Nixon, founder of Encore Palm Beach County. Rosemary has had many careers, wears many hats, volunteer and paid, and she's also a certified retirement coach. And as I already mentioned, the founder of Encore Palm Beach County. She gave a wonderful talk about, is it time to revisit your retirement plan? And this was the non-financial side of retirement. It was sponsored by Shannon Kane, a local consultant who does handle the financial side of things. But Rosemary has found in her experience that sometimes people are so busy maybe planning for the financial side of things that they don't really think about the rest of what's involved. And it's quite extensive, as Rosemary shared with us. She reminded us that 10,000 people turn 65 every day in this country, and that what is retirement? It's a way to open up new opportunities for a richer, fuller, and more interesting life. And it's that time that everything that matters to you can now be put on the front burner and in focus. She shared with us in great detail the fact that there are 6 key areas when you're designing your retirement plan. And of course, you must start with that financial and insurance based to be able to support what you want to do, but also thinking about career. What work do you want to do? Do you want to volunteer? The health and wellness aspect, your family and relationships, leisure and social outlets and activities, and personal growth and development. So important at any age. So a team approach to retirement planning, Rosemary has reminded us, is key. We want to create goals and plans based on well thought out desires. So she helped us start thinking about, what does our retirement look like? What do we want it to look like? And we should start planning now. So Rosemary, I'm going to see if you had anything else you'd like to add on this particular slide before we turn the page to July.
I appreciate you're covering everything so succinctly, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Rosemary, for sharing. And Rosemary is available if anybody would like to have any consultations with her. You can reach her through our website. So
If I,
EncorePBC.org.
I almost forgot, I wanted to share. After doing that, I was contacted by a young couple, I say young couple, in their 60s who are in the process of retiring. And what was so interesting was that they had the financial part all squared away, but what they wanted was to create a retirement that was vital, had purpose, and a life that would get them up every day with energy and excitement. So I think there are probably lots of other people like them out there, and hopefully we can do more in that area.
Well, thank you for sharing, Rosemary. I'm sure you got them all set, and they're on their way with that as well.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, good, great. Okay, Christine, what's our next slide? That's right. We had a second event in June. In addition to Rosemary, we featured Penny Morey. She is founder and managing director of Remarkable HR, and she had a wonderful presentation on something, of course, near and dear to all of our hearts, the advantages of hiring mature, experienced workers and featuring those benefits. This was particularly designed to be presented, of course, to employers as well, so that they would know and really understand that value and that return on investment. But she talked about particularly the importance of it with the talent crunch that we're finding ourselves in, throughout the year and trying to fill our open positions. And of course, we know that there's lots of good advantages of all of our generations in the workforce. But she highlighted particularly for the mature and experienced workers, the service orientation, the strong work ethic, the critical thinking skills, the loyal and dependableness, the fact of that they make great mentors, and also can attract more business because they may have a bit more way to work with vendors, work with customers, work with folks who feel comfortable doing business with someone who is mature and experienced and knows the business. So that was very exciting to hear her presentation. Okay, Christine, we'll move on to July. Our words of wisdom in July, and we also were blessed to have two and lucky to have two wonderful speakers in July. Our first one was Roberto Arenas. He's a marketing and technology professional with a passion for multicultural mentoring. And he was very fascinating, very inspiring, and interestingly enough, he used the same term that Brian Altshuler did to kick us off in March. He spoke about finding true north, helping folks find their true north, their way to mentor for significance, and he shared some perspectives on that with us. And he reminded us that a life of significance is one used to make a difference and to make a positive impact or have a positive impact in the lives of others. And mentoring for significance helps others uncover the best version of themselves, and how rewarding that is to help do that and help somebody be that best version of themselves. And he reminded us to live intentionally, that we want to uncover our own talents and harness them as strengths. And I think that's a theme that we heard quite a bit through, whether you're finding strengths in your workers, your colleagues, your mentors, your mentees, or yourself. Finding those strengths and leveraging them and being proud of them is something that was a common theme. And Roberto is very close to Kelly Merbler. He's part of her tribe. Many of you may have heard of Kelly and her tribe. Kelly is a very inspiring speaker. She has been mentored by John Maxwell. Many of you may know him. He's a very famous author of many books on leadership. And Kelly is the founding principal of the Kelly Merbler Company. And she shared with us in July her thoughts on leadership development, building bridges across an intergenerational workforce. So Kelly also continued some of the themes that we've been speaking of: be genuine and authentic and show people you care. Have a growth mindset, how important that is. And I loved her comment that generations are not a box. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier. You cannot stereotype or generalize folks because each person is their own unique person. Kelly shared with us that if we understand what people value, if we're trying to lead them, effective leadership or effective leaders can get the most out of people of all ages by understanding what they value and help them see that in their role. And she spoke about the fact that communication coupled with connection is the way to build bridges across an intergenerational workforce. Okay, we're into August now. And we were also very lucky to have a published author, Lawrence R. Samuel. His newest book is called Aging in America, A Cultural History and Age-Friendly. I think he had two books. I'm sorry. His first book was Author of Aging in America, A Cultural History. And his second book that he spoke to us about in August was Age-Friendly, Ending Ageism in America. A fascinating process of kind of taking us through how we got to where we are and now how can we hopefully end ageism in our lifetime. And his premise is that big business is the epicenter of ageism. It's both the cause of ageism and it's the solution. When you think about it, many times it's because of marketing or different things, maybe having anti-aging products or things like that. Well, is aging a problem? But if we market things properly, even though maybe marketers have created this problem, big business can also be the solution and how they present things to the public. So we talked a little bit about that. An intergenerational workforce is the best way to end ageism when people really get to know each other and respect each other as colleagues and co-workers and see what each person is capable of. And I think that is a common theme in everything we've been doing this year. Human resources, for those of us on the call that are human resource professionals, we were happy to hear Larry's belief that HR is the key to an age-friendly workforce as company gatekeepers. Again, training, ensuring that we have diverse workforces, work teams, et cetera. And again, with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he also spoke about corporate social responsibility, and age friendliness is something that could be called the longevity economy. I mean, there's money to bear if business is trying to get to the bottom line. Well, being a good corporate citizen and also being age friendly is a good prescription for increased profitability for companies. And aging is perfectly normal. I think all of us doing that feel that way. Aging is a good thing. You know, that's what we do. So we're okay with it. And it's not something we have to cancel out with certain products or creams. So that was Larry's message to us. I think we kind of all got fired up and wanted to run out and become a bit of an advocate or go marching in the street about aging is a good thing. I know I had my sign ready to go out and start marching, but well, that's for another day. But Larry has had a great book. If you haven't had a chance to review it, please do. Okay, Christine, we're up to September now. Last month, we had a wonderful entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur who also defied stereotypes. She was a woman in the technology field back in the days when we had, if anybody remembers, word processors. That's going back a number of years. And she saw the value of different technologies in the workplace and in society in general, so much so that now she owns a number of those stores when you go through the airports and you forgot your earbuds or you forgot a wire or you forgot something related to technology, you go in at the airport and you purchase an item and it may be her store. So she's in a number of airports with her products, and it was one of the first women to be invited into the airport to do so. So she's been a longtime entrepreneur and a trailblazer, both in her personal life and in her business life. And she took some time to share with us some reflections that she has come up with. And I thought that her words of wisdom were wonderful. Learning to accept and make adjustments, taking a negative, turning it into a positive, and that when we come upon an obstacle, adjust to make it work. Roll with the punches. She told us that her mother, her dear mother, always told her, dear, just roll with the punches and you'll be okay. Live for the moment enjoy, appreciate. We're only given a limited amount of time, and we all know that, but sometimes we need to take time to really take that breath and enjoy what we have in front of us. She also spoke about Scarlett O'Hara, that scene from the movie Gone with the Wind, when Scarlett says, tomorrow is another day, and we're not to beat ourselves up with what we did or didn't accomplish today, because tomorrow is another day, and we can always have another chance tomorrow. We also don't want to become complacent, because we know change is constant. That's the only thing in life that is change. We sure don't want to have regrets. We only go around once. We want to look forward. And another thing, she had shared a photo of a gal that she had seen on a woman who had this tattooed, a young woman who had this tattooed on her arm. And she took a photo of it because she really loved the saying on the tattoo, which was, and if not now, when? So whatever you're waiting for, why wait around? Why not just do it? Because she talked about, I think she did some hang gliding, she did some mountain climbing, Iris did, and she said, I'm just gonna embrace life and go for it, because if not now, when? So seize the moment or the opportunity. Never take no for an answer. She shared a story about when a high-level executive, I believe it was like Adelphia Cable or Comcast now, a CEO, wasn't following up on something. She called him up and she said, no, I'm not going to take no. You told me this and that before, and you're going to make good on your word. And by gosh, he called in a senior executive team and he said, you give this woman whatever she wants. So she didn't take no for an answer. And I love that. I'm going to reflect upon that as I go forward. And if you live in fear, you will never live. Very, very profound things that Iris shared with us last month. So again, if you didn't get to see any of these Words of Wisdom series, they are on our YouTube channel for Encore.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here. And we hope to see you all next week at Wisdom and Experience. Thank you and have a great day.